I'm glad to see Peter here tonight, since he's got something in front of us. I was concerned that applicants wouldn't show up. They do it on the hybrid.
How many are in the, how many are you letting in?
15 total out there,
15.
including your own two
Well,
board
two are
members.
board members.
There's 15 out there. They're in.
Okay. You all set?
Yeah, go ahead.
You're good? Okay. Can you turn that just a tad more to the board? And I don't mean to close anybody out, but you've seen this a little more than the planning board has. Thank you. Good. All planning board members can see it?
Yes.
Yep, they're all in.
All right, I'm going to bring
See
this
what?
planning board meeting to order. Announcements, open session, public comments, any? Seeing none, move on. A 2550 Dale Avenue, Wellfleet. Paul Berry. Approval not required plan. Peter? Oh, beforehand, just so everybody knows, this is basically, for all intent and purposes, an approval not required plan. And there's no new lots being created, no new roads being created. Paul has worked for me in past in the construction business and does some work at the gallery, but I do not feel, based on the simplicity of the property, that there's any conflict or any problem. So I'll proceed with chair. Peter?
Yeah. Paul and his neighbor just going to.
We can't hear him, those of us on Zoom.
Can he go to a microphone?
Oh, yeah, sure, sorry. So they just want to alter the property line between the two lots. They're not changing the frontage at all. The areas conform to the zoning bylaws. That's about it.
So that intersection of where it meets the cul-de-sac,
Yep. That's the same.
is there a straight line, Peter, off of that and then start your diagonal?
Yeah.
And that
And
was
that
there
was
on the
just
original
That
plan?
was to clear the driveway
Okay,
on the neighbor's lot, just so that everything was clean.
okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
it's short. I don't remember what it is, but.
So that
2 or 3
was the
feet.
existing line that was going all
Yeah.
the way back to the back lot line?
Exactly right.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions?
Seems pretty simple to me.
Alfred, you got any?
Yeah, I got a question for.
Fire away.
It's in our zoning bylaw, which doesn't totally trump into this. We ask for bounds to be at intersections.
Mhm.
Have you considered that with your client to put the 3 bounds in for the 3 intersections on the lot line change?
We haven't talked about it yet, but I imagine that will be an important thing to do when he's going forward. And we can certainly plan on doing that. But I will point out there's about 15 bounds shown on that plan right now. And there's certainly no question as to where the boundary lines are going to be in the future because of the existing monuments, but we can set a couple more bounds there to identify the new boundary line. But I kind of wanted to dot my i's and cross my t's here before I dug those holes.
I don't disagree with you, Peter. It's the fact that it is monumented, but there is no monument for the new zigzag.
Not yet.
Okay. I'll move it as an A&R if nobody else has a.
Well, in the movement, can we confirm that those 3 bounds? Well, actually, it's 3. I don't see one,
Could be the short leg, right?
the short leg, and then the two points at the 79.10 feet.
Mhm.
Because you are getting close to the other, if
Yeah, yeah.
just those three,
Yeah,
okay.
That's the only, I'm only looking at the three new ones, Peter.
yeah, no, I understood what you were getting at, but yeah,
Because, I mean, you said in your statement that the short leg is to save the driveway.
yeah,
So at that point, I would think if you were concerned about the driveway, you'd be concerned about where the bound would be to present the driveway.
Plus it'll show everybody
you
where it
can see
is.
the driveway though.
But
You could see a lot of things until they snowplow it and everything
Yeah,
gets
all
moved.
right, good, fair enough.
I mean, it's not asphalt, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, it is extra pavement.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to see,
I'll be happy to show you on my plan if you'd like.
no, I know what you're talking about.
he sees it.
I'm trying to see if in the requirements for the approval not required.
There aren't.
They're not in there.
You don't
Okay.
have to. We're asking for it because
I'll
it's.
be happy to
it's-
do it.
It's,
No, you didn't miss something.
All right, that's what I was checking.
I mean, I apologize if that was the way you took it, Peter.
Well, I was just double checking.
you're on top of it. It's just a matter of we do like to see.
Sure,
It's in our zoning, excuse me, it's in our subdivision control and the regular subdivision.
that's right.
Right.
Okay.
So, good. It's been moved. Did you have a question? Oh, it's been moved already. So is there a second?
I'll second.
Best second. Discussion. You had a Did you have a question, Dave? No. Okay, good. Any questions? Two planning board members on Zoom. Any questions?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I see Bonnie shaking her head. Okay.
She's muted.
She's
Yeah,
muted.
no questions.
No, she's not muted. She's back up. All right, seeing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. All
All right.
set?
Very good.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. Moving on, 95 Lawrence 40B project presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Jake Coburn. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Community Development Partnership based here on the Lower and Outer Cape, and we are partners with Preservation of Affordable Housing in the development of the 46 units of affordable housing in 95 Lawrence Road. The rest of our team is going to introduce themselves on the video. It's kind of joining us remotely, but we're really excited to be able to have this opportunity to share with you the details of our plans and get your feedback and suggestions and really work together to ensure that we move forward with the zoning board who has the ultimate approval of this project to produce a project that will meet all of the needs that we have for affordable housing here in Wellfleet, and is something that the residents and the town can be very proud of. So let me just turn it over very quickly to Vita Schlosky, who's a senior project manager with Preservation Affordable Housing, our partners on this project, and then Gail Sullivan, who's the architect and a part-time resident of Wellfleet, is going to walk you through the presentation and the details of the plans. So thank you. So Vita?
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, everybody.
If I could give Rebecca a heads up that Gail Sullivan's going to move through the slides. If you could give her co-hosting responsibilities. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for the introduction. Let us know if you can't hear me. I don't have much to say, just to introduce myself. Like Jay said, my name is Vita Schlosky. I am with one of the development partners, working with Jay Coburn. I'm a senior project manager with Preservation of Affordable Housing. We have been working on this project since last year when we responded to the RFP of town-owned land for development by the town. And we were designated the developer, that is POA and CDP were designated joint developers of this parcel. And so in the proposal that we submitted to the town last year, we had a design created by Studio G, our architect. And so Gail Sullivan will walk us through that right now. And just FYI, we'll also be having Sean Riley from Coastal Engineering. He'll be showing you through the last slides of what the roads look like. Gail, why don't you introduce yourself? And I know you have others from your team here, so Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. And as Jay said, I'm part-time Wellfleet, part-time Boston resident, and the architect for the project, and very excited to share this with you. So can you see my screen? Can somebody tell me?
Yes.
Excellent. Always worry about whether the technology will work. So we're happy to be here tonight and to show you what we're proposing. So I'll take you through it, and I realize that some people may already know a lot about the project, but others may not know so much. So I'm going to start as if you haven't heard any presentations, and hopefully that won't bore some people. So first, the aerial view that you see here shows the way we're conceiving of this, an upper village and a lower village along Lawrence Road. So the upper village is townhouses that are wrapping around the ball field until the water tower. So there's an entrance road, which I'll show you in a minute, from the top of Lawrence Road, or nearly the top of Lawrence Road. The lower village, which is about 40 or 50 feet back from Long Pond Road, but faces Long Pond Road, is an elevator building, and I'll talk about the details of that. And there's also a road connection to Lawrence Road there. So it's basically a big loop around the ball field is the way we've organized that. And there's a few reasons for that that I'll get into. I'm not going to go through all of the detail here. I just want you to know that we have all of the details in case there are questions. And this is basically giving the unit count, the gross floor area of all of the buildings in total. So we have 40,000, almost 500 square feet of housing, plus another approximately 1,200 square feet for community building and a maintenance shed. So the total gross area constructed is going to be a total of about 59,700 square feet. So just rough idea. And then here's the site plan, which I think is one of the things that the planning board wanted to see. And I want to just take you through the way we've organized this. The first thing I'm going to say about it is it seemed the most natural organization to us, but there were a couple of key decisions that we made early on, which I hope you all will appreciate. One is that we wanted to develop on already developed land. That was a driving force behind the way we organized this, and to avoid anything that we could avoid touching, which means that the back 3+ acres, that is the slope. There are a couple of paths people will probably be familiar with. The slope down to the near the end of Old Long Pond Road. We're not touching at all. Ditto, the other side of the water tower easement. We're not touching it at all. So this was important to us to really, given the goals of the town towards sustainability and resilience, to really minimize the development footprint. And largely built on the flattish portion that's up at the top of the site in the upper village, and the lower portion where the old abandoned COA building is located. So that's kind of the organizing principles. And the other one was for passive solar orientation, because these buildings all have photovoltaic electric solar panels on the roofs in order to provide as much of the energy as possible for the use. So a few things I mentioned. I hope you can see my cursor. Can somebody tell me? Good, thank you. So where my cursor is what I'm calling the top of Lawrence Road, nearly the top. This is one entry. It's a two-way road. One entry into the upper village here. The road comes around, comes down the hill, comes through a parking lot at the lower village, and then comes out again, much lower on Lawrence Road, pretty close to Long Pond. So that's the basic organizing. You can see that the way we've set up the buildings, they're clusters of 3 or 4 townhouses grouped together, and they step back and forth in order to create some rhythm and differentiate the massing. And they're a combination. The turquoise color that I'm pointing to right now designates a 2-bedroom unit. This blue that I'm pointing to designates a 3-bedroom unit. And over here, there's a flat, a 3-bedroom accessible flat. Now at the lower village, we have the very light turquoise is 1-bedroom units. There's one that's accessible, you see the A's, and a 2-bedroom flat here that's accessible. In addition to housing, we've got a community building located right here, behind which we have community gardens and a children's natural play area. This little gray box here is a maintenance shed. The actual maintenance workshop and office will be in a partial basement in the elevator building here. And the other thing I want to point to here is parking spaces are interspersed. So we want to make it both convenient for people to get to their front doors with groceries, children, whatever. But we didn't want to have front yards full of parking. So you can see that the parking sits between groups of units in a rhythm that allows then nice green space between these units on both sides. Another principle that we used was a minimum 30-foot setback from any property line. So you can see it from Lawrence Road. This is going to be a landscape buffer to the degree possible, like here along the old Long Pond Road properties. It will be the existing woods untouched. Where we touch it, then we'll replace in kind with similar scrub pine and oak. And again, here you see in front of the Long Pond Road building, the 30-foot line, and we are about 40 or 45 feet behind Long Pond Road. The face of our building is just a tad behind the existing facade. We wanted to ensure that we could keep all of the vegetation that exists right now on Long Pond Road. And then there's a few holes which we'll fill in. So we want to screen this well and have it look very much like it belongs in Wellfleet. So a small amount of open space, lots of trees around each of the buildings. And the same 30-foot setback is our norm. This one building encroaches into it a little bit. We had to do that for some technical reasons for the road. Encroaches a little into the 30-foot setback from the ball field, but again, along the ball field edge, we intend to replace trees so that there's a screen buffer of trees between the housing and the ball field. A couple of other things I want to call your attention to here, and Sean will talk about more of the technicalities of this later, but one is that we have a path. We thought that given the hill, and there's quite a substantial difference, it's over 10 feet from here up here. We wanted a path that linked these two because it's two communities, but it's one community, and we really wanted to emphasize that. So there's a path that comes out to Lawrence Road. This is a fully accessible path. A small portion of it, well, actually, no, it's a fully accessible walking path with no ramp now. And it has a crosswalk to get to the community building here. We hope it's going to be used as a walking loop. There are sidewalks in the upper village here and on the other side here, and a crosswalk again across Lawrence Road. Since this is going to be more family housing, we want to make sure that parents could take kids safely across Lawrence Road to the elementary school. There will also be a crosswalk in the lower village coming across here in the hopes that some people will want to walk into town. And we know there's a small sidewalk along Long Pond Road starting here that would enable them to do that. And I think I've covered pretty much everything. Oh, trash. So we have two locations for trash. Residents will take their trash to these trash enclosures, and there will be a service that comes and picks up. So one is right here for the upper village near the maintenance shed, and the other is right here with pull-ins for the trash and recycling trucks. The other thing I should mention, I talked about parking, but I didn't talk about a count. The upper village has 33 parking spaces and 24 units. The lower village has 26 parking spaces and 22 units. In addition, there are a couple of drop-off spaces right here, thinking that if there are seniors living here, there may be people dropping them off, picking them up. So I think that covers everything on the site plan. And here showing, we're emphasizing the walking path. And here's a little bit of a closer look at the upper village. And I'm going to show you, just because some people will have seen earlier plans and may wonder why some things have changed. I'm just going to go through some of the changes that have been done in response to the ZBA hearings, as well as a meeting that the team had with Chief Polly, Chief Hurley, your building commissioner, and your DPW director. So we wanted to get all that input early to make sure that we've incorporated it into the design. So a couple of notes as we zoom in here. One is that although we've tried to build as much as possible on the flat part of the site, as people who've been up here a lot lately for town meeting or other purposes know, the slope starts right at the edge of that parking lot that's there right now. So this is actually in that parking lot right here. So this 3 units and this 2 units are actually sitting on a slope. And so these will have decks with stairs going down, and you'll see these later in the elevations and sections. And there will be a full basement here, which will be used as shared tenant storage. One thing that one of the abutters raised when we did a walking tour around the site is, what are people going to do with their surfboards, kayaks, bicycles, all those other good things that people have? And this will provide some storage. There's a half basement under these two. And again, the same thing, shared storage for tenants. And one of the things I wanted to note, and this was in response to the abutter here, the Friedman, we've eliminated outdoor storage sheds. Originally, the trash enclosure was over here. We moved it over here. We thought that was less intrusive. And we've got entry paths combined to each pair of units here for efficiency. Every unit will have a front porch that's covered, a walkway, a front porch that's covered that's dedicated to their unit, and a back patio or deck just for their unit with some landscaping around them, so that they can do what most of us do, which is spill life out into the outdoors in good weather. And here, as I mentioned, is the garden, community gardens, as well as a children's play area. These community gardens can be available to all Wellfleet residents. We understand from Sharon Inger, there's a 5-year waiting list right now for the community gardens at the adult center, so this can contribute. And then a little closer look at the lower village. You can see the parking here. We've curved it, and this is to ease the radius for fire trucks, since they're the longest vehicle that will come through here. And here, the 20-foot wide road widens to 24 feet because we have parking on both sides. And there's a sidewalk here from the parking, lets people into the front entry to the building, the main entry right here, as well as to a secondary entrance here, and another linking to a community patio, which is part of the common space for this building. So we've made a number of changes again from the earliest submissions that people might have seen. One is that in order to reduce, one of the comments that came up in the CPA.
Could you speak up just a bit, please?
Sure, I'm so sorry. One comment that was made in one of the ZBA hearings was concern about a retaining wall, because the ball field, as I mentioned, is about 10 feet higher than this first floor. So we really have worked in the last several weeks to reduce that. And I'll show that to you in more detail in a section. But several moves happened in order to ease the issues around that. One is we pushed the building forward. As I say, it's still behind, very faint line here. You can see the existing old COA building. So we are still behind that. But we did shift the building forward from where we had it. And we also actually at one point flipped the whole building in order to make the entry and the services work a little bit better. And we've been able to add, so you might have seen only a week ago that we had 57 spaces total. We now have 59. With curving this parking area, we were able to add 2 more spaces. And this was, again, a concern that had been raised at the ZBA. And I mentioned we relocated the trash enclosure here to be as far away from the residents as possible, but also well screened from Lawrence Road. And the crosswalk I mentioned, and here's the walking path. So I want to point out, this is a low sitting retaining wall here, no more than 29 inches high. And the same here, 29-inch max. And the reason for 29-inch max is at 30 inches, we have to put a fence above it to protect people. And we didn't want to have the fence because we thought that that would be a visual eyesore, both for the residents here, as well as for other people coming up and down Lawrence Road. So Sean's team has done a magnificent job in the last couple of weeks, really refining this with our landscape architect so that it looks beautiful for everybody. So since I'm here in the lower village, I'm going to continue. Here's a view that you may have seen before. This was part of the developer submission. The one thing I'll note is we have flipped the building 180 degrees from this. So here I'm showing the community patio and the community room that's adjacent, but they are actually on the other end of the building now, closer to the water tower easement. It's not so easy to redo these renderings, so we're showing this to you. In all other ways, it's exactly the same, the siding, the windows, etc. And then here's an evening view. Again, this shows the water tower would be just off to the left, the water tower easement fence. So this shows the entry, but in fact, this entry will occur at the other end of the building now. And you can see you come into a 1-story small lobby, adjacent property management office, and there's an elevator and stair in this zone that carries people up to the upper floors. And you can see here the intention, both in the background, a thick screen of trees with some shrubs below, toward Long Pond Road, beautiful landscaping to welcome the residents of the building home, 100% accessibility. I should have mentioned, one of the things that we're doing here is every unit will be visitable by somebody who has mobility impairment. So that means flat entries into every single unit, including all the townhouses, and the ability to move around that unit. But as I mentioned, there are the 3 fully accessible units, 1 1-bedroom, 1 2-bedroom, 1 3-bedroom. Oh, I don't see a section. What happened there? Okay, sorry. So I'll show this view to you. It's there on my screen when I checked. So this is, we've taken a slice through that 3-story building, through the parking lot, and through the hill to the ball field. And that's what this drawing represents. So here's the building, and you can see what I was talking about, flat entry into the lobby. And then the elevator is back here, entries to the stairs here. And we've got slope ceilings to give top floor units nice high ceilings and nice high windows. One thing that I want to mention is that in order to solve the issue that we had here about the 10-foot difference from the ball field down to the existing elevation at the existing parking, is we actually raised both the parking and the first floor of the building by 2 feet in the last few weeks. This relieved a lot of issues for us. So by doing that, now we can come out, we can have our accessible entry from the parking into the lobby into all units, but we don't have an ugly retaining wall that requires a fence near the ball field. So here you see the ball field's mean grade at 83 feet. We've got a sitting wall, it says plus or minus 2'6", but it'll be limited. Oh, I said 29 inches, sorry. Yeah, 29 inches, it has to be under 30 inches, so that it's a sitting wall along a portion of the walking path, and this is the walking path. And then a steeper slope, which will be landscaped between the walking path and the parking area. So this does several things for us. One, it makes that path a very pleasant path. It's got a sitting wall on one side, plantings on the other side. It gives a nice view for the first floor tenants of this building out to landscape and the walking path, and then to the ball field beyond and higher than them. And it eases the transition then to the rest of the site. So one of the things I want to note, because you may have seen a building height earlier, this got adjusted in the last week. Under zoning regulations, we're required to show you the building height from the existing average grade. You can see here average grade. Yeah, it's very different from one face of the building to the other. So the building height from the average existing grade, which is lower, is almost 49 feet. And we'll be looking for a waiver for 49 feet. The building height from the proposed grade, as we're showing it here, is approximately 45.5 feet. So just so people have a sense of it, this is a subject of a zoning waiver, as I mentioned, because it exceeds the allowable building height for a residential use. And then you all asked for elevations, and I want to start. This is actually old, but I wanted to start here. It's a street elevation that we had shown in the developer submission because it gives you an idea of the overall Upper Village and the kind of variety that we are creating with these housing units. No two buildings will look exactly the same as you go by it. One of the things that's always bothered me about public housing and sometimes affordable housing is they all look like they came out of the same cookie cutter, and that is not what we want to do here. We want variety, which reflects the kind of variety that exists around Wellfleet. So that's what you see, and there's a variety of different kinds of siding used. I'll get to that in a moment. So building A is the very first building that you see at the top of the hill on the left-hand side. So it's the one that if you started to drive in, you'd look to your left and you would see this top elevation. So it's the front elevation for the building. It's facing south. Building height, maximum 28 feet. It might actually go to 29. We're shifting a couple of roof slopes. And what you can see is a few of the principles we're using. Number one, overall, we have 3 colors of siding we're proposing for the housing. It's a light gray, a dark gray, and a cedar color. And we are using a few different forms of siding. So here you see horizontal clapboard siding, pretty common. Here you see shingle, very common in Wellfleet. Here you see something a little more unusual, though it does represent the mid-century modern houses, vertical siding. So more of a, it's not quite a board and batten, but more like that look. And that's the same kind of thing we're doing in a variety of ways on each of the houses. There's also, although it's not so clear here, the building steps back right here. So this is not a flat facade. It won't look that large. It's deliberately, we're pushing these buildings back and forth so that there's not this kind of monotony of one front wall. Here below it, you see the decks that I was talking about. So this is the rear elevation facing the back of the properties at Old Long Pond Road. And I should have mentioned accent colors at the doors. So that's where we're doing the bright colors. And there's 4 different colors that we're proposing for doors. So this is the unusual building. It has 2 decks. These 2 units share a single, they each have their own deck area, but they connect to share a single stairway, just so we didn't have 3 stairways here. This has its own stairway going down. These stairways may actually shorten once Sean's team has finished with their final grading. We may be able to shorten these a little bit, but as I mentioned, we do have a basement entry for shared tenant storage. People would walk down and put their playthings, whatever outdoor stuff they have into designated spaces in these basements. I'll move on. Here's a section again cut through the two buildings, building A on the left and building C, I hope. No, that's not the right number. I won't give you the number on the other side. Just so you can see the difference, what we had hoped to do was a slab on grade construction as is shown on the right-hand side. That's the one that's backing onto the ball field. You can see everybody has a front porch roof and a rear porch roof or rear deck roof in this case. But as I mentioned, the basement was an opportunity because of the hillside. It really made much more sense. And here you see roadway width, sidewalk width, just so you have a sense of how the buildings face each other. And we're being very deliberate about these buildings having doors facing each other, creating a sense of neighborhood among these residents. So here you see building B, it's the next one on the left-hand side. And you see the way that we're dealing with different roof lines is very much a riff on the mid-century modern, but it's also all designed to maximize our photovoltaic panels. So the slopes mostly face either south or west in order to do that. We're taking advantage of height to provide high windows into the upper floor bedrooms, for instance, so people get a great sky view in their bedrooms. I'm not going to spend a long time on each of them because you'll start to see that there's a set of rules that are applying to all of them. So here, the rear elevation, this is the one with the partial basement. So these two units share, they each have their own space, but share a deck and a very short stair because the grade is sloping here and the entry to the shared tenant storage in the basement. Building C, a different one. And this is the one that has a 1-story, 3-bedroom flat, which is 100% accessible. So this one looks quite different. Their entry is over here on the side because that was the shortest distance we could give them from a parking space, which is also accessible. I will say I wasn't satisfied with this elevation. We've been changing it this morning. You're not seeing the changes yet because they're not done. But this is going to change a little to make the front facade more friendly because we didn't think it was friendly enough. Building E, the last of the different types of buildings. And here you see again, the different color. The doors have a variety of colors, different siding to differentiate units. And again, building steps back at that location. And you can see in this one, the intentionality around planting in front yards, but also giving the residents a chance to have a little bit of ownership over some planting in their front yards. Oh, I lied, one more different one. Building H, and this is the one that's beyond the community building. So it's the last of the different units. Other than that, they repeat with different colors. Building I, you've seen one that looks like this before. And then the community building here, where if you'd seen it earlier, you would have seen actually the main entry over here. We've redesigned the interior to make it more efficient and allow residents to quickly get into the two things that they're most often going to use, which is the mailboxes and package area and the laundry room. So I didn't mention it before. This is a good time to mention. In the upper village, well, in both villages, there's shared laundry. For residents of the upper village, it'll be in this building. So this building contains a large community gathering space with a little kitchenette, a laundry room, a property management office, bathroom, mail and package area. And I'll stop there and turn it over to Sean. And Sean, if you just tell me go, I'll click.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail. Sean Riley with Coastal Engineering. Thank you for that intro to the whole site. So we worked with the, as Gail said, the fire chief, police chief, DPW. We got their comments. We have wide sweeping turns, all 60-foot radius to accommodate their truck. We've also incorporated 3 hydrants on the property with a 12-inch water main loop that comes from Lawrence Road through the parking lot and loops back around and ties back in to Lawrence Road with the 3 hydrants off of that loop. The property is going to be equipped with a sewage collection system that will then discharge over to a to be developed wastewater treatment facility in conjunction with the school. And the fields for that, the leaching fields for that facility will be within the ball field, actually. And so we'll discharge to their collection stub that they're going to leave for us. And all that will be sent over to the treatment facility and then discharged underneath the field. The drainage is fully contained on the site. All of the buildings will have gutters and downspouts that'll be routed to dry wells, individual dry wells. And the all of the road surface will be paved, and all of the runoff will be directed via the gutter line to catch basins, which will then be routed to storm scepters and subsurface leaching recharge basins that will accommodate the 100-year storm event. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell as far as all the utilities and the access. Gail did a good job about talking about the access around, the parking spaces, the trash receptacle locations. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions or get any specific details about the utility or site access egress around the site. Let me just actually, can you jump to the profile?
Sure.
Thank you. So just looking at the road profile throughout the site, we tried to keep everything relatively flat. So we've got essentially 2% slopes throughout the site that again direct the stormwater runoff to the catch basins, storm scepters, and then subsurface leaching recharge basins. You want to just jump to the next one. So then you see here, well, this is the transition from the upper village to the lower village. We're at about 6.6% coming down that slope into the parking area. And you can see the actual transition relative to the ball field height, which is in the background. So we're making that transition. Actually 6.6 is a relatively gentle slope to make the transition given the topography on the site. And as Gail mentioned, raising that parking area and the first floor of the building really helped accommodate the grading and the access loop around the ball field. So where the cursor is there, you're passing through the parking lot and then back down to Lawrence Road. We've got 7.5% and then flattening out to just about 2% at the entrance drive as you come in on the lower village. So really done a job here to try to accommodate the changes in slope. It's kind of a tricky site with the ball field being kind of the mesa, the apex of the property, and then everything just kind of rolling off downhill from there. And the group has done a great job of coming up with this layout to really limit the disturbance on the site. As Gail said, we tried really hard to maintain the vegetative buffer around the perimeter. And they've done so with adding the walkout levels on the upper village and also accommodating that on the lower village facade facing the street. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions you may have.
I got a question, David Mead Fox.
Through the chair, David.
Oh, yeah, through the chair.
Thank you.
I wonder if you could talk a little bit more detail about the entrance and exit from the upper village onto Lawrence Road. I'm thinking in particular about left and right turns out of that area and people coming around from Long Pond Road, there's not a huge amount of space there from that corner up to where the exit and entrance is. I appreciate your comments about that.
Sure, we actually, Gail, we had Fort Hill Design, a traffic consultant, do a review of the facility. Gail, would you like to speak to that, or?
Well, basically, the traffic study indicates a negligible impact. And if I recall the kind of the punchline of it, it's 1 additional car per minute.
Less than.
Less
Less
than.
than
I think the difference is less than one new additional car per.
No, I'm sorry, I actually meant the other part of the site, the lower village, I guess,
Oh, gotcha.
down
Let me-
closer to Long Pond Road. Yeah, thank you. That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, so he did look at site distance, and the required site distance from Long Pond Road, looking left, looking right, coming out and entering into the lower village. And there isn't any impact on site distance or any concern about site distance.
Okay.
And if I could just add, one of the things that's shaping this is there's an existing piece of equipment here. We are not 100% sure who owns it or what it is, but we were going to stay away from it and just buffer it. So people might, if you drive Lawrence Road up from Long Pond a lot, you will have seen it. So that's part of why this road is turning a bit where it is, to access Lawrence Road, and why we couldn't come in higher on Lawrence Road.
Well, I assume at some point someone would figure out what that is and if it needs to stay there. Or-
Yeah, Sean, do you have any information on it?
Yes, so that's, I believe that's a backup, a generator for the utility company. It's owned by the utility company. There are several little basically vaults below the ground that extend above ground for those the backup generators. And they're all vented. Whether they're active, they're owned by the utility company.
Okay, all right, thanks. Okay.
What I saw was it's Verizon, but I'm not sure really what that means.
Okay.
David Rao?
Yeah, just back to parking now. I think our standard is 5 for units. So if there are 46, you'd need what, 50, 69?
That
So
is correct.
we're already
That's
10
correct.
deficient. Now, although that's our standard, I think our standard is rather low at the 1.5, because this doesn't really take into account guests and visitors. And that becomes more critical with the more units you have. So you have 46 units or thereabouts. So you would assume that the 10 guests or 20 guests at any given point in time. So to me, you have a very problem with all your limited parking, and you're already deficient. So that causes some concern for me. And I don't know if you're able to address that. Given the site, it wouldn't appear that you could.
Yeah, what I'd say is we have worked to eke. I brought back up the site layout just so you could see it. We've worked to eke every parking space that we can without creating, for instance, a big parking lot in the upper village, and without really wrecking that slope that goes down to the abutting properties along Old Long Pond Road. Or with, the other thing you'd have to do is start to bring the development much further onto the hillside here, again, sloping down toward Old Long Pond Road. And we really didn't want to disturb that much of the land. So this really was, as we saw it, a balancing act, trying to make sure. So we're at a 1.3 ratio rather than the 1.5 that the zoning regulations call for. And this is one of the waivers that the team has requested from the ZBA. And Vita, maybe you want to talk a little about what the plan is for managing the parking?
That's correct, thanks. So the plan right now is to have assigned spaces per unit. So every single apartment will have at least one parking spot assigned to it, and we'll be able to find a spot for each unit that is close enough to the unit entrance. In addition to that, we will be regulating. So if, we have 46 apartments, we have 59 parking spaces. So each unit will have at least one space dedicated to it. The additional spaces that aren't assigned will be uncategorized, meaning it can be used by folks who have a second car and or folks who are visiting or guests or other such folks. So we, in addition to assigning spaces for folks who are living here, we're also going to have people have a sticker. And so we'll be regulating the spaces, all 59 spaces. And if someone is parking there that doesn't have a sticker, who hasn't checked in at the front desk, either at the front, at the lower village or at the upper village, we will be managing, so to speak, those folks who don't have a sticker.
I have
So
a
that's our
question
plan.
about the sticker system is a good one, and a question about the reverse of that. Let's say somebody who has a sticker comes in and there's a bunch of guests or people there and they can't find a place to park. Is there going to be backup parking somewhere like in the elementary school parking lot or something like that?
We're exploring options about backup, but for now, our current plan, at this time anyway, is to do what we just said. In terms of backup parking spots, we're not pursuing any opportunities at this time. I'm assuming that maybe if people have guests, that they could check them in or notify the main management office about guests, so that we know who's coming and going, so we don't have to tow people who are there for a specific reason. Or even moving trucks, for example. We can figure out a strategy with our management company and folks moving in, that kind of thing. We'll be reasonable, respectful of that.
Right, and moving companies can use the drop off that we have here at the, oops, I'm using my wrong screen, the drop off zone that we have here at the lower village building. And upper village, maybe they park on the sidewalk because that's a fairly short term. We can say we did look at tandem parking, so front to back, toe to toe, or heel to toe parking. And there are 3 places here, here, and here.
Gail, do you want to zoom in a little bit so people can see?
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
There. Sorry. So here, there's enough room that we could fit a few. One of the things we don't want to do is have people have to look outside their bedroom windows at parking. So here and over here, there are opportunities for tandem parking. So one of the things that the team was thinking is if it turns out that there aren't enough parking spaces, say especially for the 3-bedroom units and maybe the 2-bedroom units, then you would assign a household 2 parking spaces, but they are the tandem units, right? So they have to negotiate with themselves over coordinating, getting those cars out.
What about the existing parking spaces on Lawrence Road?
We were
We have
asked
been-
not
yeah.
to use those.
We've
Alright,
been
just
told
check.
very specifically and reminded a lot by the ZBA that we are not to touch that row of parking that's parallel to the baseball field.
Okay, so that'll have to be
Um,
monitored as well by somebody.
Yeah.
There's-
Another just thing I wanted to say was we could pursue turf pavers as a possible solution. Just to be mindful of pervious surfaces and
Yeah.
stormwater management.
So if we did the tandem, our thought is we would do the paving blocks that
If,
allow the turf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, we think, the tandem spaces would take up land that has been undisturbed. It would add asphalt and it would become an eyesore for both residents and abutters and neighbors. So
Tricky balancing act.
it's really tough because, as you may know, the site is so tricky in terms of grading and the slope, it makes everything kind of difficult.
David Rao.
Yeah, again, I don't think you really addressed the problem, or you're able to address the problem. Part of it's our own standard. And I believe when that standard was drafted, you might help me with this, Jerry. The 1.5 per unit was probably based when most of our apartments were in the central part of the town, where there was no parking. So it was a walking community. This is now farther away from town, and maybe our standard is deficient. The reality is any one apartment, a bedroom, whatever, usually there's 2 parking places needed. So I think you're not only gonna, you don't even meet the standard, but for all practical purposes, you're not gonna even, you'll be way under. You probably need closer to 80 to make that functional. Because what people will do is by default is just park right across the street at the school, and that's a problem. And you have no way to stop that, and no plan that you propose will stop that from happening. Stickers won't stop that, okay? Stop the wishful thinking. You have to get the parking right the first time. You're already deficient. All right, you should at least get to the minimum standards, which you can't seem to do.
Karen.
Karen Plantier, Town of Wellfleet Water Clerk. I have 3 questions, and maybe you can field them for me, it would be great. Who is the engineering company that is doing the hookup of the town water, doing the plumbing? That's my first question. The second question is, what happened to the utility closets or the service closets where the water meters go? Because they're calling to put the water meters under the stairwells. And my third question is, who will be fielding these types of questions? Because they're coming into my office, and I'd like to know where I can send them, and also where the bills are going to be sent as well. Thank you.
Sure, I can address a couple of them. So the folks who we've been working with Rebecca roughly at the town. She's engaged, I think the gentleman's name is Dave Formato. I think he works with a company called On-Site Engineering. So he is currently still developing the on-site septic and wastewater treatment facility design. So you may want to be in touch with Rebecca roughly about that engineering aspect. As far as questions from the community about this project that are coming to your office, I think, is that Karen?
No, that's not the question. The engineering company is not, we don't know who they are, but the engineering company is calling me, asking me where they can hook up the water meters and the transponders. So the engineering company is approaching the town, asking these types of questions. So I need to know from your point of view, who I can contact to send him to you to have his questions answered, because I didn't know where to tell him, because there's no utility closets to install the water meters. And it's the engineering company calling me, not the townspeople. So Rebecca roughly is well aware of these questions, and she didn't know who the engineering company was.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not understand your question. You can send those questions over to our team. So you can, if you have Jay Coburn's email address, perhaps he can share our email address with you. Would that work? I don't.
This is Jay, and I'll follow up to make sure you know how to get in touch. I also would just point out that rent includes water. By statute, we don't charge individual residents a water bill, that their monthly branding is inclusive of the water. So that we'll have to address those metering issues when the final design comes forward.
Alfred?
Karen, does that answer all your questions?
No, you haven't answered many at all yet. I'm sorry. Alfred?
Did your questions get answered?
I still don't know who the engineering company is, and I guess Jay's gonna tell me I can send the questions to him.
I think at this point,
Yeah.
direct the questions to Jay, and I think you will get your answers.
Okay.
And if he can't, I'm sure he will find the appropriate individual to contact.
That's correct. Yeah, we'll help find
yeah.
them. Thank you.
Alfred?
I'd like to go back to the parking. What size parking spaces are we using in our design?
They're 9 by 18 and the town's requirement is 9 by 20. So it's a subject of a waiver request.
So we don't have enough parking spaces for what the town requires. And then we're still trying to make them smaller. Is that correct?
Shorter because standard cars these days fit into an 18-foot space.
How is that a sort of? It either meets the requirement that's in the book or it doesn't.
Oh, I wasn't referring to the not meeting the requirements. I said clearly we are asking for a waiver. So we do not meet the size requirement. We do not meet the count requirement. Those are subject of 2 waivers being requested at the ZBA. What I meant by sort of is you said substandard, and historically, so 20 years ago, we assumed we needed a 10 by 20 foot parking space for larger cars. The largest cars that most people drive these days are not that large. And in general, sizes of parking spaces have been downsized in most municipalities. So we're doing the 9-foot wide by 18-foot long, just again to minimize the impervious surface and to not mess too much with the slope.
Maybe I'm confused then because I have a parking lot and all the trucks that come in my yard that people drive now because people don't drive station wagons anymore. They drive 4-door pickups and they're much bigger than they used to be. So I think some of the cars have gotten much bigger. So I'm a little concerned about the amount of parking. And the other question is across from or next to the easement for the water tower. You can't put any parking spaces there?
We can't fit it. There is, if you look at what's on the screen right now, we've got the corner of the ball field. A
I'm on
5-foot. Oh,
The
sorry,
screen is done.
Okay,
sorry. Let me share again.
please.
There you go. Okay, can you see that now? So here's,
Can we go down further? More towards the lower village?
yep. Let me see, hold on just a sec.
Maybe halfway,
First.
please?
Well, halfway, I don't have a choice. No, that's the only place you can see that bulb with the water tower, sorry, is this screen. So,
Oh, let's go to the bottom one, please. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's where my concern
okay.
is.
okay. Where, so you're thinking, say, where my cursor is right here?
Absolutely.
Right, so I've got, Sean, help me out. What's your elevation for the parking lot itself? I know it's. sloping
Yeah,
up.
we might be able to squeeze out a couple more spaces on that turn, to your point.
Right. Yep. So if we can, the issue will be there's a substantial cross slope here. So it's going to be whether Sean's team can figure out how to make that work without creating, for instance, a big high retaining wall.
Well, I don't see the concern about the retaining wall. If you're building a complex that you may not have enough parking in and then having to fix it later. I think it'd be better to do it right once instead of coming back when there's a parking problem. Because this parking problem, if it exists, is going to be at the elementary school and there's not going to be anybody in town happy with that. So all the good work you put into this, that may show up as the first negative.
Mhm.
I think you'd want to consider the parking a little more strongly.
We can explore that.
We will definitely look at what we can add in there.
I don't see the problem with, I think, I forget what you called it, but one parking space in front of the other in some of the locations.
Okay.
Tandem, I
The
guess.
tandem parking, yeah.
I use that in my facility in Provincetown. It works fine.
Yep. And as I pointed out, there are 3 locations that we've identified where we can do that.
I mean, if you take the one by the water tower, I believe there's 4, 5 parking, even if you only left one on each end, not that, to stay away from the house. You got 4 spaces there, you got 3 at the other one, you got 2 or 3 at the other one, you got another 3 at the fire tower, excuse me, the water tower easement. You probably get to the 69 you need.
Yeah, no, we could get to the 69 if we use the tandem. I will point out, so I think we're talking about two different things. One is the zoning regulations. Tandem does not meet the zoning regulation. We'd still need the waiver. But on the other hand, to the degree that what this conversation is about is what functionally is going to work, I think the tandem could work.
I mean, if you could get to 69 functional parking spaces, your waiver is only for the size of it at that point, for the most part.
And location. Anything else?
No, that's enough.
Question on I got a number of questions, but first one is the community garden.
Mhm.
It seems to be, and on the site plan that you've got up, it looks like there's that green building, the garden is behind the green building.
Yep.
You said that was going to be used by the residents. And did I hear correctly that you were thinking about opening that up to some of the general public in Wellfleet?
Potentially, we heard that there was potentially interest. That
I'm
really
sure,
is-
I'm sure there's I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. I'm sure there's interest. But with that is, number one, I don't see any access into that garden area for the ongoing growth of vegetables, delivery of loam, delivery of soil, delivery of wood chips, delivery of materials or anything else, plus the fact that's a good distance in. Where is everybody going to wheelbarrow everything in and out of there? I don't see it as much as the town of Wellfleet would like to have more garden area. They have area where they can create it. I'm not sure it's advisable, and no offense to the general public in Wellfleet, with as tight as this site is, inviting the general public without substantially more parking and access, to me, lends more problems than you're looking for. But I think I would like to see some kind of access. It certainly doesn't have to be paved, but I don't know what the slope is because I can't see it clearly as I would like to. But if that's where it's going to be, you're going to need to get light and trees and everything going to have to come down around it, which is fine, but you need to get access in there in order to make it a viable garden area. So I think that needs to be looked at. My second question is, the deck sizes. What were they, or what are you planning?
Alex, do you remember the size?
The size of the decks?
Yes, we have decks on only 2 clusters in the townhouses. That would be clusters A and B. Roughly, I would say they are less than 100 square feet per unit.
Right.
And they join together just to egress down to grade, because we need a second means of egress.
So,
Okay,
They're-
if that's the case, have you looked to having access to each unit with their own set of stairs, number one, and number two, some type of windbreak and privacy fence between the two, so the two aren't coming out? They've got a little privacy on that deck?
Yes, we
there
have.
will be privacy, yes.
There will be privacy between, and we have evaluated the efficacy between having them egress at grade versus going down to the basements. And we thought that having them egress at first floor level going down to grade with an exterior stair was the best option.
Yeah, I can see that. How many units have basements?
Only
46.
5.
only units. I'm
It's 5 units. It's 1, 2, oh, sorry, wrong screen. 1, 2,
A and B.
3,
Yes.
4, 5. Those 5 units have basements under them, and they are not basements specifically for those units' use.
They
So okay. That's kind of, you're anticipating where I was going.
They serve a dual purpose, which is number one, as a retaining wall, because the topography in that area is specifically steep. And they serve a dual purpose as a community storage area. So residents in the upper village will have access to those basements to store their stuff.
What about the lower village?
They have,
Village.
I didn't get into it, but in the lower village, there's a half of the area under it is a basement.
Yep.
And there's a maintenance workshop, there's a laundry room, there's storage for maintenance, and then there's also a tenant storage room.
Yes.
So those 7, what is it, 7 units up in the upper village? How many of those 7 structures have full foundations?
Everything has a full foundation. We
Full
cannot build.
basement, correct, full basement.
No, full, sorry. Okay, everything has a full foundation, but under 5 units, so under.
No, not a full foundation, full basement.
Yeah, I'm saying
7
5
units.
5 units.
5 of them. So 3 of them are on slabs. Correct?
Are you talking buildings or units?
Yeah.
We'll go with buildings. We'll stick with buildings. How's that one?
Okay,
I
so
see 7 buildings up there.
right.
How many are
So-
slabs and how many have a full walkable basement underneath them?
So the first 2 on the left-hand side, if you can see my cursor, this building and
Yeah.
one half of this building have a basement under them. Everything else is slab on grade.
Well, that's unfortunate because we made that mistake in Wellfleet already, and that's the biggest mistake we've ever made. Last project we did out on Old County, that was a complete failure, and I wouldn't put up with that. I mean, that's a waste of money. If you're not gonna put in a basement and give people a place to store things, that's just a complete waste. We did that once. We did that in this building. We blew it with this building. They bailed on the foundation here. This could have been storage for municipal things. Another shortcoming of Wellfleet. This is the same thing, waste.
So where would those individuals store? If they've got patios and they've got back decks, where would they store in the wintertime, the chairs and surfboards and,
The winter gear.
okay, David, all right. Where would they store things?
The intention is that they will have shared storage designated in the basements. So these are not individual basements. This is a basement under this whole building, one basement, open
Yeah,
under
but
the
what's
whole
this, okay,
building.
what's this, because I don't have plans in front of me. What's the square footage of I'm gonna say building 1, which is where your arrow is right now?
Yep.
What's the square footage of that basement?
Give me a sec. It's about,
Sure.
so about 1,500 square feet here. And then about 1,000 plus here, maybe 1,200 here.
And those are the 2 buildings that have full basements?
Correct.
No other building out of the 6 upper, 7 upper,
That's
and the
correct.
lower.
That is correct.
So there's 2,500 square feet of storage
46.
for 46 units.
No, for 24 units.
For the
Because-
upper village.
Upper Village, exactly.
Okay.
So 24 units.
But I thought I understood just for clarity here, I thought I understood that you said that the lower village had no full basements.
This one has a half basement. So this whole area, if you
Yeah.
can see my cursor, is basement. And in it is a laundry room that tenants will use, as well as tenant storage, as well as a maintenance workshop and storage,
How
as
much
well
is
as some
designated to
utility space.
storage?
Off the,
Okay,
sorry,
so,
off the top of my head, I don't know.
well, how many units in the lower section?
22.
22. What's the size? You take out your workshop, because you can't store anything in the workshop. Take out those municipal areas where everybody's going to use. What is left over as storage area for those 22 units?
Sorry, I don't have the basement plan in front of me and I don't have a scale in front of me. I can't give it to you off the
Okay.
top of my head.
So since there's, so I guess I get to the point. Since there is no outside storage buildings, it would seem to me, and I realize they are apartments, but if we're looking to carpenters, electricians, plumbers, you're looking for housing, affordable housing in the town of Wellfleet for laborers, where do they put their stuff? Because the building themselves, I can't put them in the units, they're not big enough. So even if you were to find, I guess where I'm going is, even if you were to find on the site some areas where you could build into side of a hills with garages where they could use for storage and use the land that way, it would seem to me that that would be a path you should consider going down. Because we've seen in this building, we've seen the 12 units on Old County Road with no basements, no storage facilities, and a dire need. So that to me is a shortcoming.
Mr. Perrin, if I could
Yep.
offer a solution, I think you raise an important challenge, and we discussed this at the ZBA meeting as well.
Sorry, I'm
And
repeating.
Yeah, and I know that it's kind of typical here on the Outer Cape that a lot of folks have a home, and they also are running their business out of their home, and that's kind of the way things are here. And I think what we need to look for is how much of that can we accommodate at this site, but then also let's get creative as a community and look for other solutions so that tradespeople don't necessarily have to run that business out of their apartment. And we can look at some other solutions, because I think that the balancing act here is we don't want to build on this entire 6 acres. We want to respect the neighbors. We want to have as much green space as let's not pave over paradise here. But let's look at other solutions, maybe, having tradespeople's parks in town, or, other places too. Like one of the issues is, how about folks who are in the shellfishing business? Clearly this is not a great place to running that kind of business, but we need to be looking for some other solutions to meet those needs. I'm not looking
to get to that extent. That is a problem for the town of Wellfleet to solve. But I am looking, I happen to live behind Old County Road with those 12 units. I see what they go through with no places to put anything. I see it with this building. I see it with public buildings. As to David Rao's point, we've made mistakes in the past. I'm hopeful that we will learn from those mistakes and find a happy medium. You can't solve our problem. I don't expect you to. I certainly don't expect you to, Jay. But I do think that it needs some more attention. I think it was I'll move on to another question is, was there a problem bringing an access instead of both accesses on Lawrence Road, was there a problem with an access coming out on Long Pond Road? For example, the town
Can I,
of, the town of.
can I
the town of
answer?
Well, let me see if I can finish for a second. This
Okay.
is a town of Wellfleet project. I haven't talked to the powers that be who control the town property. But I'm looking this as an overview, and I'm looking at the fact that there is a road parallel to this going up to, and I understand it's gated and I understand it's fenced, but they are able to get up that road, and where this is a tight spot, I'm wondering, did anybody ask the town of Wellfleet that the second egress, instead of coming out on Long Pond Road, I'm sorry, Lawrence Road, down by Long Pond, to hook into halfway up the hill on the water tower road and use that access, which is already there. Long Pond Road is built for a heck of a lot more traffic than Lawrence Road is. And people are going to go to the beach from there, come into town. So I'm wondering if the developers had looked at that access as a possibility.
We did actually talk at one point with Jay Norton about that, and the access to the water tower has to be protected because it's a public water source, drinking water source. So perhaps you could go part way up, but we ended up giving it up because it didn't make any sense in terms of giving the security that's needed for a public drinking water source.
For the water
So,
source.
yeah.
Can you, or did you, based on that, and I understand, I'd like to see you push that envelope a little harder. And to see.
Was also an issue.
I'm sorry?
Didn't get that.
I didn't get it.
I think the grading was also an issue up that.
Oh, okay, because I was looking at the topography. I know they get up it. I know, but I don't know if it's even paved, but was it also an issue bringing, let's say you couldn't use it? Was there an issue on the grade running parallel to it coming out on Long Pond Road?
We would have to check. So
No, we actually know that answer. We looked at that early on, and it's much too steep.
So it's more than a 10% grade?
Yes,
8%?
yes, it is. It's more than 10%. I'm just looking at it right now.
Yeah, way back before we made the submission, that was our first choice to come alongside that water tower. It just really doesn't work from a grading point of view.
Okay, then parking for, I hate to belabor the parking, but I mean, the school is where we have the ball field. The school is where we have assembly for town meeting. What all the additional parking right now that's used for the ball field for Little League games, where are they going to park?
They're going to park at the elementary school parking lot and at the parking alongside Lawrence Road, facing the ball field. That parking is not for these residents. And the development team talked the other day about suggesting to the town that you put a sign to that effect at that parking, right? Because
Yeah, that would, to me, that would make a lot of sense, number one, because I can see where if that parking is not controlled, where the excess parking for your facility is very convenient for them to park especially overnight, and park in there. And I know we're not playing Little League in the middle of winter, but I think we are using up a tremendous amount of parking area that we've had the liberty of using in the past with this project. So I think that parking needs to be looked at. The intensity, I understand your intensity with retaining walls. I think if you look at Outer Cape Health building, when they came before the planning board, there's a retaining wall in the back of that building which is far exceeds 10 feet.
Right.
They've done a very good job with it. It looks very good. And I think maybe in some cases, you may want to look at something of that nature, even if it requires fencing at the top, but to create more parking and more maneuverable parking for these parking spaces. I think that your 24 feet passage is fine. I think that's we don't even build roads, subdivision roads. If they can certainly pass in, 16 feet. What we have found in Wellfleet as a planning board, and this is a sort of a discussion. We are not your permit granting authority, the Board of Appeals is, but they look to us for egress, access, and movement. I know you've got to keep the fire chief happy, but I'm thinking that your passageways can address fire rescue and two-way traffic. We would do a 60-lot subdivision, a 50-lot subdivision with 16-foot roads with no parking on them. So I think that maybe that 24 feet should be looked at, even if you knock it down to 20 for your passage, you just picked up your 2 feet without needing variances. So I think that might be a place where you can look to improve this. If, in my opinion, if you've got to build some retaining walls and put up 3-foot fencing and create areas where you can add some more parking, I think it might be a good idea to do that. Yes, I know we want to keep green space. And I know we want to protect the neighbors that are there, but with all due respect, you're putting 46 units into an area, you're going to disturb it. You're not putting 1 or 2 houses in here. So consequently, that disturbance is major. You're doing, I think you're doing a great job of landscaping and everything else, but it's there. It's not going away. And so therefore, I think you probably should really look at, in my opinion, a little bit more use of that space rather than to cram it too tight. Is my idea. I'm not. What was the reasoning behind the Lower Village 3-story rather than 2-story?
The town was looking for 46 units. And as I said at the beginning, we were looking for a way to both avoid damaging any more of the existing untouched site as we had to. And so the way to do that efficiently was to do a 3-story elevator building. But let me explain a couple of things that go into that thinking. So as soon as we get to 2 stories, we have to do an elevator for accessibility regardless, right? That's a regulation for multifamily housing. Therefore, an elevator at about $250,000 cost is really wasted on a 2-story building. But if I can go to a 3-story building, I'm starting to actually get some cost-effective value out of that elevator. So, and frankly, cost-effective wise, would have been better to do 4 or 5 stories, which we understood was never going to work here. So the point of the 3 stories is, it seemed to us it was the right balancing act between what fits into the Wellfleet character, because there are 3-story buildings here, while trying to maximize the value of that elevator. So, you know, there's a lot, I just want to say in general, in response to some of the comments that people are making. One thing that people might want to understand is that the way that affordable housing, and this is affordable housing, the way that affordable housing is funded is highly regulated, and the funding available is extremely limited. And we are in a market in which construction costs are astronomically high, higher than they've ever been in my 36-year career as an architect. So when we talk about basements, retaining walls with 6-foot-high fences, and a whole variety of other things, one of the things that we have to think about is what's the added cost, which is not going to be compensated for by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, right? The funding cycle. So there are reasons why affordable housing, for instance, is typically slab on grade. It's less costly than putting a full basement in. So I just, you know, there's been a lot of great comments and thinking in your comments, but there are reasons for every single decision that we've made on this project. And a key reason, which we haven't addressed yet, is money, 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 right? And the cost of things. And so we have to, in order to deliver this 46 units to the town of Wellfleet, we have to make sure that we are doing a financially feasible project.
Well, and I understand that. I understand it as a builder. I understand it as a developer. Cost. But we've got to look at it for the next 100 and something years. Yep. The buildings that you are talking about in the town of Wellfleet that is 3-story was zoned out almost 35 to 45 years ago. We've had 2 stories in this town ever since. They were back in the captain's whaling days.
Right.
And it is, of all of the buildings on the site, at least to me, again, not having, and I'm not, believe me, I'm not blaming anybody here, but not having site plans in front of me and anything else, I mean, that is a visible corner to me. You're looking at how many people use it to go to school, how many people go to the ball field, how many people go to Long Pond, how many people go to the ocean side going on Long Pond. Was there any thought going down that road for cost is to leave the most visible place on this site to a 2-level and create a 3-level in the back in a wooded area where most people wouldn't see? Was there any thought given to that?
Yeah, we did have a scheme that looked like that. And we elected to do this one because overall we felt that it actually, I know this seems counterintuitive, but overall it had less impact because it's the lowest part of the site and therefore was going to stand out less to most people. And our thinking was, as long as we could stay behind the front face of the existing building, which has a really pretty good screen of rhododendrons and trees in front of it. And if we beef up that landscape screen, then it doesn't seem to us that it was any more of an issue for what people see going down Long Pond Road. And it therefore wouldn't be towering over, for instance, the old Long Pond Road residents who are substantially lower than the high part of the site.
What's
All
the
of the design is a
distance from
trade-off.
those back? And I'm sure you've looked at it, but what's the distance? And again, without the plan in front of me, what's the distance from the back side of units 1, 2, 3 on the upper village, 1, 2, 3, 4, which I think are backing up to what you were talking about.
Right.
To the lot line, number one, and then down to those houses. And what is the elevation change?
Well, I don't know exactly where the houses are because we don't have that information, but I can say that we are about 65 feet. They vary, but about 65 feet, say from building A to our property line. And the house that's immediately behind that one is not that far from the property line, doesn't have a very deep rear yard. So, you have to give some thought to what it means to have a 49-foot high building at the top of the site, visible to many, many people. And
So 25 feet of elevation change from the first floor down to the property line.
yeah, so we did look at that one because it was the obvious idea is to bury the tallest building in the middle of the site. But it actually seemed more obtrusive because of the topography of the site.
Well, I agree, the building, that particular village aspect from the parking lot is a lot lower visually than the backside, which everybody's going to see approaching the project. So I kind of disagree with you, but you've researched it and you've got the paperwork, but still, to me, going down Long Pond Road, looking up at a 49-foot building, and I know that's not average grade, it's the basement, but you see in the backside of the basement elevation all the way up to that third floor, that's a big building. That's almost as big as the school. And I'm not even sure the school, back of the school is 49 feet, but you probably know that better than I do. So I'm going to turn the floor back to Alfred.
Bonnie has a question.
Okay, I saw Alfred first, then Bonnie.
You want to go, she's gonna wait.
Bonnie. Bonnie?
Yes, I just like a little, let me lower my hand if I can. Oh, somebody did. I just like a little clarity about because I've been to a bunch of the presentations on Lawrence Road, and I've been following it pretty closely, and I've been very impressed. And I think these questions that are coming from you all about parking and the grades are I'm sure helpful. But I would like some clarification about the role of the planning board and and how and what the nature is of our involvement, because I think my understanding is that the zoning board of appeals is making the decisions for a comprehensive permit, and they're the ones who are going to be doing waivers. So I just like some clarification about what our role is, because I need to know, and what, if we need to make decisions or make votes, I want to know at what point in this process and what parts of the planning board is involved in or not. I think I understand the value of them coming here and getting the thoughts of those of you who have so much development and building experience. But I would really like a clarification of our role.
Before I answer that,
Good evening. This is Marion Rose. I'm one of
closer.
This is Marion Rose. I'm one of the attorneys on the project.
Sorry, I forgot to introduce you, Marion. It slipped my mind, and then we went into Gail, and yes, sorry. Go ahead, please.
No worries at all. Bonnie, you've actually almost, if I could paraphrase what you've said, you've almost explained it yourself. The ZBA is the permitting body here, and the other boards are consulting boards to the ZBA. And we're taking your input on this and taking it into consideration, and then bringing the plan before the ZBA, who will be the parties voting on the plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bonnie, it's similar in nature. And to a significant impact of 10 parking spaces or more and gets referred to the planning board, the Board of Appeals is the permit granting authority. However, they realize that the planning board deals with road construction, subdivision, moving of vehicles, architecture, things of that nature. So therefore, we weigh in simply as making recommendations and points for them to look at. They don't have to look at anything that we send them. They can take it and take, if we make 10 recommendations, they can take all 10. They can take it with all due respect and put it in the wasteful basket. But it is a process where they, the 40B, as you were told or presented, is that they are the lead to make 40B projects go through as few hoops as possible under Mass General Law. But that does not mean that we shouldn't have a presentation made before the planning board. That does not mean that we can't make recommendations to the Board of Appeals. That's what they're looking for. And I think that's what certainly in the past, 40Bs that have come to the town of Wellfleet have come to the planning board. That's what the developers are looking for. If they can satisfy some of our requests, they will certainly try and do that. If they can't, and they make a determination, and I'll say this as kindly as I possibly can, is if the overriding factor is cost, and since most of these developers who do these kind of projects know what they can do, what they can't do, what they can get reimbursed for, they have handcuffs on themselves as well. But we're here simply to overview this, just as we made a recommendation, say not potentially, and board will discuss it, potentially knock down the width of the pavement, or not pavement, but the width of the roadway for the traffic going in both directions, to say add a little bit more to the parking areas. You're still covering the exact same amount of square footage, the exact same amount of pavement. You're just using it and dividing it up in a little different way. But that's what we are. We're simply here to make some recommendations to the Board of Appeals, whether they choose to work with those or not work with those, or whether the developer chooses to work with those or don't, is up to them. Does that answer your question, Marty?
Yeah, totally. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alfred.
I have a question about the original units down on Long Pond Road. They're 48 feet high, is that correct?
Call it 49.
Okay, so when you originally developed these at 49 feet, the grade was 2 feet lower, is that correct?
No, it's 49 feet above the existing grade. So.
Okay, I asked the question differently. When you originally designed this unit, the parking area was at?
Was 2 feet lower, correct.
The elevation has been added to 2 feet in elevation, is that correct?
That is correct.
So did the unit also go up 2 feet? Not the unit's height, but the unit's base elevation?
Yeah, well, yes, because the first floor is tied to the parking lot elevation.
So this 49-foot unit from its original plan has grown 2 feet in elevation because of the elevation grade change.
Correct.
So was it 40?
Oh, it's still 49 feet, Jerry. What they've done is,
Great.
but because they've had to change the grade,
Yep.
because they don't want to spend the money for the retaining wall.
Can I interject?
Well,
please?
I'll ask that differently.
Can-
If,
I'd like to reiterate what Gail is saying. So Gail is a really well-informed and
I'll
educated
move on. I think I
architect.
answered my own question. Thank you.
What we're both trying to say, Gail and I, is that we are affordable housing developers. We aren't in this business to make money. We are in this business to create housing for those who need housing. To do that, we do so by requesting subsidies from federal, state, and local authorities. Most of that subsidy comes from the state, from the Department of Housing and Community Development. And those subsidies only diminish from year to year to year. And so what we're trying to do is create a project that best serves everyone's needs, prioritizing the resident needs. Also knowing that we have a tough site in terms of topography and grading, in terms of previously undisturbed land, and also considering that we are on the Outer Cape, trying to accommodate the fact that you guys are living in a beautiful place. We do not want to pave over paradise, as we said it before. There are lots of things that we're considering that we would like to respect in terms of the location, the climate, the topography, the residents. And so we're trying to do the best that we can with the very limited subsidy that we can seek from the state. And so I just want to reiterate that we're not doing this with our own money, trying to get an ROI from our own capital or equity. We're doing the best that we can to solve for a population that needs shelter, that needs a roof over their heads so that they can live and work in Wellfleet year-round permanently. So I just wanted to reiterate that to the board, that in addition to that, you know, this is town-owned land, and the town collectively came up with a plan to develop this property with an RFP, where they were seeking affordable housing to be built here. So with all that said, I just wanted to mention, you know, we're doing the best that we can with the limited funds that we can seek here. Thank you.
I also wanted to clarify something because I think I was misunderstood. The reason that we eliminated the 8-foot high retaining wall was not because of money. It was because there was an objection to it at the ZBA, and there was an objection to it by the building commissioner. And so we did a lot of redesign of the site in order to reduce that. And we think it also makes it a much more pleasant environment for everybody, those using the ball field as well as the residents.
What's the distance from the fenced area of the ball field to that small retaining wall? I think you said 29 inches high.
Yeah, 29 inches high. Sean, are we about 10 feet? Looks like maybe 15 at the narrowest.
Yeah, at the narrowest, it's about 11 feet.
Yeah, it's very short.
About 11 feet off the
The
fence
fence.
line.
Correct.
Yes.
Which was one of the reasons that people didn't want to see a fence there.
I'm going to
Jay,
see if I
you're-
can just inject a little bit of levity. Has anybody looked at how many foul balls are going to come into those cars?
That's no joke.
We have talked about this. We have been talking with Rebecca and the town, other departments about the netting and the fencing that will go around the baseball field. So that conversation isn't done. I imagine that there will be more discussions about who and how the netting will. Yes, we're definitely aware of this. We've been talking about that for a couple months now, actually. So
Because you know it will happen.
I've had it happen, Jerry, to me personally.
Because we got some pretty good ball players that can hit a ball pretty good. Planning board members, any other questions?
I have. a couple.
David.
Yeah, I mean, hope this is a dumb question. It's not necessarily planning board related, but this is in respect to the building across the street. Because apparently nobody asked this then. I'm assuming these buildings are fully sprinkled.
Yes, thanks for asking because
All
I
of them?
forgot to say it. Yes,
Thank you.
every single building, this was Chief Polly's major concern. Every
fully
single
sprinkled, eh?
building will be sprinkled.
Thank you very much, because we got into a world of not asking that question about the school.
Every single building will be fully sprinkled per NFPA requirements.
Perfect. Thank you.
Viewed with the fire chief and our fire protection engineer.
Excellent.
Not a question. Going forward, doing it.
No, the question I was going to ask was you're down the road too far, I think, at this point for that question. Any other questions before the board discusses recommendations? Board members?
One detailed question is about the drop off at the lower village. I can't tell from looking at the plans on the screen exactly what that maneuver is, how people are dropped off. Someone could just maybe enlarge that part of it.
Sorry, are you talking about at the Lower Village building?
Yeah, lower village, the drop off for
Yep.
Residents, people picking up, dropping off.
I don't have a Zoom capacity. I don't have a capacity to zoom in on Zoom, sorry. Double
Just
zoom
maybe
there.
with the cursor, you could just.
Yep. So what it is so here are the last couple of parking spaces here. And then this curb edge here to the sidewalk, there's room for a couple of.
Yeah, we're not seeing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so
We're seeing
sorry.
Alex's screen.
Alex, let me share.
Okay, go ahead. Stopping my share.
Okay.
You
Now.
should see Gail's screen now.
I hope. Yep. Okay, so right where my cursor is, we can fit 2 vehicles in line here, parallel parked. And that's the drop off. And then they'll be able to walk here into the lobby, or somebody can walk out easily. So it's right here. What we're trying to do is make use of pavement that was pretty much going to be there anyways, because the trucks that do the trash and recycling have to have a certain angle to come in and do their pickup. So this seemed the best place to do it. It's right by the front door.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
We should probably designate those on a drawing as drop-off spots, which we haven't done yet, but we will.
Well, aren't they parking spaces?
Well,
Well, a drop off, you got to park, right?
Short.
yes, they are parking spaces. Generally, I don't know if Wellfleet has any rule about this.
We have no rule. That's why I was kind of questioning.
Okay.
We don't have anything that has to do, it's a parking space is a parking space, whether you park there to drop somebody off or you park there to park for an hour or 2 hours, it's a parking space.
Excellent. We now have 61 parking spaces.
Was that a good way, a subtle way for you to pick up?
Thank you very much.
That's actually perfect.
You just got to think outside the box.
That's right. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. All right, bring it back to the board members. Any recommendations board members feel they would like to submit to the Board of Appeals? I believe you have, I'm going to address it to Jay just because he's sitting here and I can guide him. I believe I was told that you have a meeting tomorrow night with, okay.
That's correct.
Board members, and I don't know where you're at with that meeting, but board members, if we have any input, I would really like to get it done quickly tonight, so Karen can get over to the meeting tomorrow night. I imagine we have a full plate anyway, and you can't really address it, but at least they've got it there.
If I could just elaborate, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We have a full session tomorrow night with the ZBA on the.
Full session?
Yeah, with going to detail to continue the discussion. And we'll be looking at the traffic report and parking issues with the ZBA tomorrow night. We have another hearing then also scheduled on the 22nd as well. Where we're hoping to finalize and address all of the different issues. If I could just share with you one of the pressures that we're up against. Pretty much only on an annual basis does the state accept applications for affordable housing developments. It's also somewhat unusual for a project to get funded on its first attempt. We're in a really good environment right now, and that the state is sitting on several $100 million in ARPA funds that have been targeted to affordable housing. And we have a really good shot at getting this funded in this first round and having a place for people to move in and who desperately need housing in this town by the beginning of 2025. So that's the goal here. So we very much want your input, want your feedback to the ZBA, but we also want to be in a position where we can start to move forward with an application by early October with the state. And because if we miss that application, we would wait a whole another year.
Well, then I'll do my best to see if I can't get them to get this stuff out to you tonight. All right, board members, let's see.
I have a question before we start, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
If you change the terminology of the drop off the other, how many sites did you come up to?
61, I said,
51,
61.
61.
Yep, they're already at 60.
So we're at 61.
We have 59 right now, right?
59, so
Yeah.
that'll give you 61. Yep.
As of 2 minutes ago, we have 61.
Okay.
All right.
Jerry?
David made, yes.
David.
Yeah.
To me, the way to summarize this the most succinctly is that I would like the board to recommend that some work be done, some creative design and thinking around parking and storage
That's
on
right.
behalf of the residents. That's it.
That's right.
Yep.
That's it.
That's what we've talked about the most.
Okay, David.
I think we have consensus about those two things.
Alfred?
I feel strongly that they need to meet the requirements of our parking. In my opinion, they don't have to go too far to get the rest of the parking spaces. I don't think they should be downsized because of vehicle size, because I think that's not necessarily true with everything. I watch in my yard every day. I have a small yard, and if two small cars show up, it's fine. If two pickups show up, it doesn't work as well. You know, if they're side to side in the back. So I think that that's my opinion. And I agree with that we should move forward with this. That's not the, but I think that the small things, I mean, if they're really looking for this money and they're looking for it that fast, I believe you can draw some parking spaces.
Figure them out real quick.
Yeah, probably in the by morning.
That's
I'm
right.
not- That's up to you.
Yeah. We should have a number attached to that, and that's the minimum standard.
That's what I said.
1.5.
David,
I
it should meet
want
our
the
code.
minimum standard. I
1.5.
don't want this
No,
crazy, we're gonna
it
work
should-
at it.
It
I
should
want a
meet our,
number.
I will make a motion if that's where we're going, that they meet the parking requirements in our zoning book for the units. I believe that they should also enhance the space for storage for tenants. I believe by adding the height to the building to skip the fence isn't quite right, but I'll leave that out.
Yeah. I don't know if it'd be on our purview to address the foundations as far as full, but I think it would be a mistake again to shortchange the whole project for storage, because I know many of those people that live out in Old County, and it's a nightmare. Your house is a disaster.
And where do you put your-
You're living on
and
slabs.
the
It's
Thanksgiving
an
stuff?
embarrassment, you know?
So we've got that motion on the floor.
Could somebody repeat the actual motion?
Well, what I
Go
But
ahead,
I
David. Mead.
original motion was that we strongly recommend that additional work be done on increasing storage and parking. Ideally, I'll add up to the minimum for parking, which I think would be a total of 10 new spaces, maybe 8 now that we found the other 2. But mainly to really do some work on, we understand the limitations that you're under, but to really try to do some creative work on both storage and parking. That's the main point of the motion.
Okay. Is that,
I wouldn't vote for that.
No, it doesn't say a minimum.
all right,
standard.
well, then these are only recommendations. What do you want to add to it?
I don't have a problem with you, David, with your part about the storage, but I believe that they could certainly meet the requirements for parking.
That's what he said.
That's
No,
what I
he
said.
He didn't
To
say,
try to.
he said try to. There's a big difference between trying and doing.
And do it.
So our
the rec-
recommendation then, what you're saying, Alfred, is would you would alter that to be not try to meet the standard of 1.5 spaces per unit, but to meet it.
Absolutely.
And that would be, that would be 10 new spaces.
No,
No,
Oh,
no, it'll be
7,
at this point, right?
46
Eight to
and
get the minimum.
23.
8.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Can I
Yes.
clarify? Can I clarify? So these spaces could be achieved by allowing more tandem parking in some places, right?
that's one method.
In
Well, that's-
part, yeah.
Can I
Okay,
just
I'm
put
just,
that-
I just want to
that-
clarify.
That does not meet
that's-
your standard, but,
Yeah,
but if you're
Meet
going to
the
be okay
space.
with that, it'd be great if you'd say so.
The standard of 1.5.
Correct. A tandem
tandem
parking
space
space
does
does
not
not
count.
meet your standard.
Strictly, but it works.
Okay,
defer to
yeah, and
you,
I
Peter.
see where
Well, maybe
you can
don't.
explain that tomorrow, but I definitely see that if we inserted that we recommend meeting the 1.5 parking space requirements, they may want to look at tandem parking, they may want to look at other alternatives. I think,
We can try to find around
Yeah,
that bend.
exactly.
We
I'm
can
trying to
see if
give
we
you
can
the
get one or pick
latitude.
up one or two there.
Yeah.
We'll look at
David,
it, yeah.
David Mead, you got any problem? You got any problem with
No,
that?
no,
Adding the tandem?
no, as moved, I don't, hopefully don't have to repeat it.
I'd also like to add to that with the parking, that the parking spaces meet the 9 by 20 and that the
10 by
24-foot
Roadway.
roadway could be reduced to 20 feet. Now, you may have to discuss that with the fire department, but I have a feeling where we're not decreasing the overall from the front of that car from one side to the other, it's still going to be 40 feet. If my numbers are correct, you still have 40 feet between your parking and your passage. Not every one of those, if you've got a fire up there or a rescue, is going to be there, but that's still 40 feet. That's plenty of room for them to maneuver. They only want 14 feet when we do a subdivision. Give them a 14-foot cube and they're happy. So giving them 20 feet, they should be fine, and that's wide open. So board members okay with those?
Can I add something?
Yep.
I was wondering about electric charges for cars being parked.
Never.
I mean, that's where things are going. If we're going to give a recommendation.
Eats up space. Town hall's empty all summer. Park's there. 4 spaces gone. I ain't seen anybody in there all summer.
And if this is affordable, I mean, that's the way it's going, but I think,
Unaffordable.
I think that's up to them if they want to do that, but really.
Okay.
Who? Gail. Yes, Gail. Gail,
You muted.
I'm sorry?
She's muted.
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify, there's the 20-foot roadbed in the upper village, changing to the 24-foot drive aisle in the parking in the lower village was what Chief Polly asked for. So we have already had the meeting with him, and it's not, they don't have 40 feet to maneuver there because they've got vehicles parked on both sides who may or may not pull all the way into their parking spaces. And so the reason for the widening of the drive aisle is it's 2 ways. And you have to assume that at some point you've got the largest fire truck in Wellfleet parked there for an emergency. and other people have to get by. So I don't think, I take your point about wanting the longer spaces and we'll look at it, but I just want people to be realistic. We cannot narrow that drive aisle or the roadbed.
So is the parking spaces depth and the passage for vehicles?
I've got 36 plus
38.
24. I've got 36 plus 24, so that's 60 total width from the front end of a vehicle in the one direction to the front end of the vehicle in the other direction.
You've got
So if you-
60 feet?
60 feet, but the cars are going to be parked there. And so we have a drive aisle of 24 foot. And you've got to think about worst case scenario. Worst case scenario, cop car, fire truck or two, and there are still cars parked there. And somebody has to maybe get through there. Right? That's the scenario we have to design for, because that's what allows the movement.
You can't drive by a fire truck. You have to-
Gary, could I say something?
By all means. Well, I'm sorry. Yes, Bonnie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I like the way that, I mean, I like the way that, I don't think that we should get into figuring out for them how to increase parking. I mean, I like, you know, they know their plans a lot better than we do. You know, I just think that I like the wording of David's original motion, because we're not saying how they're going to do it. We're just asking them to use their creativity to increase the parking to them. And I think, and then there was an amendment to that where one of you wanted it to the current standard.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
And so I don't think we
Which
should.
is the same thing, but we're not telling them how to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's just-
I mean, other than that, we're not telling them what to do. Excuse me, we're not telling them what we're looking for.
Yeah. I think it's clear. And so I'm not sure where you're going with it,
So
Bonnie.
we have a motion.
Yes,
Did we
and
have
it's
a
been
second?
seconded.
Okay.
Who seconded the motion?
I thought you did.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
But I will.
all right, we've got a motion. Second,
A second.
best seconds. All right.
So
Gail,
that-
let me see if I can get, we've got a motion, but just for discussion on the motion, on the floor. What you're saying is, let me just take the upper village first. Or if the engineer wants to dive in, fine.
Mhm.
Right now, you've got on the upper village, 18-foot depth parking spaces on both sides and a 20-foot passageway or a 24?
Upper Village 20-foot road,
20-foot road
correct.
and 36, 18 and 18.
No, you don't have the 18 and 18 in the Upper Village, because remember, those are scattered because they're not parking lots. There's just a few here and there, right?
in
Just-
between.
Just to clarify, so you've got 18 feet depth from the back of the sidewalk. And then you've got a 4-foot sidewalk depth, and then you've got 20 feet. And then you've got another 4-foot sidewalk, then you've got 18 feet beyond that. So you've got 22, 20 and 22. From out to out. So you get 64 feet between the head-in parking and the head-in parking on the other side.
64 feet.
Yep. So you've got people pulling in, and you've got to remember they're going to pull into the end of the spot. There's no trees, there's no sidewalk, there's nothing in front of them that's to prevent them from pulling all the way into their space and over that space and into that lawn area. So their nose is over that space. I have a pickup truck myself, so when I back in the rear end as far as I can get it.
I do this exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, so
We all got
and
pickup
they've got that room on the upper village to do that, and they've actually got the room to do that on the lower village at the ball field. So I was thinking about it on the lower village. I'm backing up into the space that's by the ball field, so I can get my tailgate over the edge of the curb. And you know, whether on the lower village, you've got 18, 24, 18, 60 feet. If you reduce the road width to 20 feet, you still have 60 feet. So all we're really doing is creating an additional 4 feet in the roadway. So you've got the 20-foot path if you're not pulled all the way in, or you don't. It's still the same depth from width to width. We actually just have a wider travel lane on the lower village. So I think we've got more than an adequate room being able to pull these things over without having them overhang on sidewalks where the sidewalks are out in front.
To be able to get 20 feet?
Yeah, to get that 20, I mean, we could add another 2 feet, but I don't really think it's necessary because you've got the depth of you've got a 4-foot depth of sidewalk, and people are gonna nose all the way into those parking spaces. Nothing to stop them from pulling all the way in.
So I think, again, to Bonnie's point, I think it's best left to you as the developers. But if we're in the letter saying we recommend they be 9 by 20 and that that they get the number up to the required number of parking spaces, figure out how you do it, then that basically gives you latitude and satisfies what we're looking for.
Understood.
And don't forget, work on the storage.
Yes.
So we already have that motion on the
Yeah, we had
floor.
storage in that.
Second recommendation?
Yes.
Storage.
Service, all right. Any more discussion?
No.
On the motion? If not, a vote? All those in favor of the recommendation to the Board of Appeals?
Aye.
David Mead, where are you?
Yes.
Yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Unanimous. You got the gist of what's going? You want to give me a call in the morning? Or I'll call you. I'll try and get this over quickly. Give me a call in the morning. All right. And we'll get it over to Board of Appeals and it's in your bailiwick.
We appreciate it so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for your
Thanks so
time.
much.
I appreciate,
Thank you.
Thank you all.
planning board, I appreciate the
Nice to meet
presentation.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's move on while we get the letter from AT&T. Basically, they want to take the tower down at Hortons, go under the 10% guideline to increase it 10 foot high. Do we want, the state says they can do that automatically through the building inspector. Do we want them to resubmit the whole thing again, or do we just want to say, go get a building permit? How does the board members feel?
Building permit.
Huh?
Building permit.
Building permit?
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna just go right around. Building permit or special permit application all over? Or do you understand the question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't find the letter from AT&T in our packets, either in the electronic or in what I got.
It was in the last packet, Bonnie. Bonnie, I'll tell
Oh.
you, okay.
It was about 2 inches thick too, bud.
Yeah. Bonnie, the gist of it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember it now.
They want to add less than 10% of the height. The state of Massachusetts says if you do that, you can go straight to the building inspector. The town does not have to have another public hearing. So David has already said, both Davids have said, go straight to the building inspector, let him handle it. How do you feel?
Yeah.
Go to the building inspector? I see the nod heading, but I don't hear you.
Yes, yes.
Good, okay. Olga?
Likewise, yes.
Okay. Well, Beth?
Yes.
Okay, it's determined. Let AT&T know, just go straight to the building inspector for the additional height, which is under the 10%.
You prefer a motion to that?
You want a motion?
I make a motion that we let it go to the building inspector, the AT&T application.
Second.
Since it's under the 10%?
Yes.
Okay. Second by Olga. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor of the motion?
All right.
Bonnie?
Bonnie? Yes?
Yes, I said aye.
Yes,
Yep,
unanimous.
sorry.
That's okay. We got it. You have seen in your packet a letter from the supposedly Board of Selectmen, entire board, but they're basically saying that they're asking whether or not the planning board would like one of their members to be a liaison to the planning board. They would not participate in discussions. They would just bring back information to the select board. How do board members feel?
I just like to say, Jerry, that I've experienced that already on the CPC committee and the Energy Committee. And for what it's worth, I found it useful and not intrusive and did not seem to inhibit conversation in any way that I could see.
David, would I be inhibited with anybody around?
No,
Okay.
of course not. And I would rather have a connection to the select board through a liaison personally than not. And if they're offering and they want to put in the extra time, I certainly support it.
Anyone else?
Is there a reason not to do it?
Well, it's a
No,
lot.
there's no reason. It's better.
Yeah,
It's
We've
commitment.
had them before.
yeah.
I mean, they are able to attend any of our meetings, right? They're open meetings. But
Exactly.
this is an official person who we go to and who is kind of just more continuously informed about what we do. So,
Right. They're just paying attention. One person would come to each meeting, not any person from the select board.
yeah,
So wait, I'm confused.
Oh,
Isn't it the reverse? They want a planning board member to go to their meetings?
No,
They want a select board member to come to our meetings?
Yes.
That's not what I understood.
They want a select board member to come, one member.
I believe that you might want to read the actual selectmen's letter.
no,
You have the selectmen's letter, Jerry?
They want
For
someone.
the chair, could you read that? Please.
At the August 2nd, 2022 Select Board meeting, the board discussed committee liaisons. There are some board members that would like to be considered as a liaison. I am sending you this letter on their behalf to ask if your committee would like a select board liaison and in what capacity you would like the liaison to work with you. This is not a requirement for your committee, just a suggestion and a way to have a select board member who you can have as a contact person who will attend meetings and listen to your progress and answer any questions you may have. They will not weigh in on your deliberations, just a person to listen to all of the work that your group is accomplishing. Please reach out to me with the thoughts, concerns, and opinions of you and your committee. I think that's clear as can be.
Yes.
yeah, very.
It's not what was in the agenda from the way I read it, but I don't know if that's the problem.
Yeah.
A liaison to the select board.
oh, it's just reverse, but this is an initiative in the other direction affecting all boards and commission and committees.
And we've had a liaison in the past. That liaison in the past is hard to keep still.
That's the,
We found them getting into the discussion. We found that the information that got back to the select board was somewhat inconsistent with what was said. They can't retain it all.
Don't hold
And
back, Gary.
I'm being gentle, but this is not new. You know, and I won't even go any deeper than I'm already.
Yeah, Jerry, I think we all get it, really. But it seems to me I would propose the way around it would be to be really clear about the ground rules and be consistent with them. You're really good at that as chair anyway. And just say, you're here to listen. And if something does get back to the select board that is incorrect, then I guess we have to try to correct that. But I do think
Yeah,
it's
but
a
David,
benefit for them
David,
to
you
really
have the-
see what we do.
Yeah, but David, with all due respect, I don't have the time I don't even listen to the Board of Selectmen meetings. I don't have the time with what I do as chair for this board and with
no, I
everything
get it.
else. So if incorrect information gets there, I can't correct it.
No, I'm not saying you should listen to their meetings. I'm just saying if something happens to turn into a kerfuffle of some sort and we hear about it, not even you, we can try to correct that. Or if we have to, and this seems like we could reserve the right to do this, we stop the liaison system altogether if we realize it's not working.
Okay, I mean, my thought is, don't they have their hands full with what they've got right now?
Well, they're already here frequent flyers anyhow.
I mean, they really have their hands full with the state of Wellfleet and with what's going on.
Well, I agree. I also think that if this works properly, it's a way to actually not to be too optimistic, could make things potentially more efficient in certain cases, because they won't be as, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've had plenty of side conversations with various people in town who think they know what's happening to planning board. And I know if they were actually at the meeting, they wouldn't have that opinion. And so in general, I think it's a positive thing to have a select board person. If they're inappropriate, they won't behave or whatever, then we can change it.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd also like to say that, sometimes they will have information on other committees or on other things that are going on in the town that are relevant to whatever we're discussing. So I hope that we can set the ground rules so that, they can ask permission to speak if they have information that's relevant to our discussion. I don't know.
Sure.
Okay.
The only positive potential I see is that when the select board is working on a policy, that we could be helpful in developing correctly instead of being put in position after the fact to vote on it. I think there's a potential there of being able to help develop good policy.
Yeah. Good point, Beth.
Okay, do we want to request, and I think I want to take a motion on this, do we want to request it's simple. Do we want to request a liaison, or do we not want to request?
You have a specific individual or just in general?
No, I mean, you've got 5 select people. You're certainly probably not going to be the chair. Got a feeling he's got his hands full.
Logically, if we're going to go this route.
And I don't think it's going to be, and I may be totally wrong, but I don't think it's going to be Barbara, because is that potentially she's being paid by the town of Truro as a town planner?
Well, that's why it would be a good choice for us.
Well,
We
it
could
would,
double
but would
dip.
it, she's got to be real careful if she starts jumping in and even into a discussion as a town planner in Truro, she's not, is there a problem there? Is there a conflict there? I don't know. So if I rule out those 2, do the other 3 have any idea of what we do in the first place? I don't have that answer.
Jerry, let me back up a little on Barbara. I actually think she's smart enough to know when there'd be a conflict and would say so. I think she's very knowledgeable. She's very reasonable. We haven't driven her crazy yet, amazingly. And so I think she would be a fine choice. And if there was a conflict, she could self-identify and leave the meeting. Otherwise, her point of view and her experience could be very useful to us.
Well, we're talking about this as not a liaison, but as a member. I mean,
No.
it's sounding more and more like,
No,
well,
no, I'm just saying that if we're going to have a liaison, you can learn from your liaison. That's what the other committees and boards are doing.
Yeah, but she can't, there's the problem. I don't think in her position in Truro that she can teach. I don't think the way I'm getting this is they're not there to participate in any discussion whatsoever.
Right.
It's a report back to the Board of Selectmen of what we're doing. And it could be, to your point, if we have a question for the board, instead of contacting the board through the secretary, you probably discuss that with the liaison.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think if you read that one more time, it says they're gonna answer questions.
You're not going to pick who it is.
But I think that said they're gonna answer questions, so they're gonna participate. And I'm not opposed to that. I'm just want you to.
This is not a requirement for your committee, just a suggestion, and a way to have a select board member who you can have as a contact person who will attend the meetings and listen to your progress and answer any questions you may have. So yes,
They're gonna participate.
they're going to
And
participate.
I'm not saying that's bad, but I want to be very clear what that says.
But there could be, again, it has to be kept reasonable and conflicts avoided, but there could be any number of questions we have. What's the status of X or Y in the town? It's going to help us figure out whatever we're talking about. And the liaison could say, well, we talked about that last night, and this is the story on that. And that would be just information, not participating as a member in any way.
Well, we had
Exactly.
that in Rex when all this started. And I thought we might actually get that in Rebecca when she was hired.
Yes.
And that's probably the
Yes.
direction we might want to go.
Isn't that the job of the town of Becky as
Town planner.
a town planner?
planner
She
used to
should
attend
be
them.
I
present.
was just going to suggest, we
member.
don't want a liaison from the select board. We want the assistant TA / planner
Planner,
to attend our meetings.
because she
They
can
always
actually
did.
teach us some stuff too.
To me,
Vice
that would be
versa.
a lot more
Productive.
productive.
I think
Yes.
we should,
Okay.
I don't, last I heard, she was doing two people's jobs.
well, that's the town's problem.
No, I know, but I don't think that we should request a specific person.
Well,
Well,
it's always,
Rebecca was hired under that auspice in the first place. That was what it's historically, the assistant TA has also been someone with a planning background. And they were already given to the planning board as
that's right.
She's got it.
a faculty. Yeah, there you go.
I think
So
my
let's-
first
It's
4
not-
years, we always had,
It was either Rex
assistant-
or whatever, somebody else. Yeah.
yeah, it was Brian
Brian.
Carlson.
Yep.
Bravado.
Well,
Yeah,
and-
just one after the other. I don't know why
Okay.
it stopped.
Let's just do
Okay,
an
and-
alternative request.
That seems to me I would support that entirely, but it's a separate issue. I think if we have to decide, do we want a liaison from the select board, yes or no? And then secondly, we want to request to the town administrator, I guess, that Rebecca become a regular liaison to us. Two different things.
Could be.
Let's reject, I make a motion, we reject the request and that we ask instead that Rebecca Ruffley attend our meetings.
That seems simple.
Yeah, except the town administrator should make that decision, not the select board.
Well, they will. It's not, this is a suggestion. It's
Yeah,
not, we're
no.
not ruling anything.
The Board of Selectmen is the policymaker.
I would rather not have those two things commingled because I agree with one and not the other. So how can I vote on that when there's two things that I have an opposite opinion on in one motion?
It's not two motions. One, we reject the offer. And two, we ask for Rebecca.
Okay,
Ruffman.
Okay, so we want to
Wait a
start.
minute. Can I do an alternative? Because I think this is backward. I think first we request that Rebecca roughly be a representative, to the planning board. And then a second motion can be, if that is not possible, we request a liaison from the select board.
Oh, I
Well,
wouldn't do
Got
that.
yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't connect them.
Bonnie, she is, even though she's not here all the time, you have seen her, and that's who I go to
Problems.
with some problems, and if I need to get to council, I go through the TA. She's been here at the last meeting we had. So yes, her plate is full, but she has the experience as a town planner. And it would see, and I believe she goes to the select board meetings. So maybe if we phrased something saying that,
Should be reverting back to the old policy of what we had.
It would be more efficient, more effective.
For a number of years, the building commissioner would often sit in
yeah,
with the CBA,
well, they've also, building inspector would also come here every once in a while.
occasionally
yeah,
too.
frequently.
Yeah. So we've had staff liaisons as opposed to selectmen liaisons. I think the staff liaison is more productive for us. In
I
this case,
agree.
where it's Rebecca who's trained in that. So,
Well, can we just do one motion, then the other and vote?
tell the selectmen to
but
piss off.
But
Yeah.
I would really,
I'm trying to get David Mead, because you were leading the way. I'm just trying to get your thought. I'm not overly concerned with getting back to the Board of Selectmen today. They're not going to do anything because they can't do anything until we request. But I think we just got the door open with this letter to say, thank you, we've discussed it, but at this moment in time, we would like to take advantage of our town planner at our planning board meetings more frequently.
How about this? How about this?
Go ahead. I knew I could get you there.
If she goes to,
Get him to write a polite letter.
Go ahead. David.
Here's a middle ground. Here's a middle ground. We say, just what you said, Barry, at this point, we appreciate the offer of a liaison. At this point in time, we prefer to have our liaison be the assistant town administrator, the town planner, and we will take under advisement and consider the idea of a liaison from the select board.
I like it.
I like it.
additionally, if she attends both our meetings and select board meetings, she's an automatic liaison between the two groups
Like the
Exactly.
ball. Yeah.
and knowledgeable.
And quite frankly, she has had discussions with the select board on things that they've been doing and they haven't listened to her. So she has stood up and she will stood up. I like that, David.
I second.
Okay. All those in favor, any discussion? I'm sorry. Seeing none. All those in favor?
I,
Okay.
All right,
Got that to right. Got it. Thank you. What was the last?
Thank you, David.
I just lost it. No, I lost it a long
the
time ago.
next,
Discussion is still, okay.
can I,
Yeah.
we have we have liaison report listed here.
Yep.
And
That was, well, right?
we
That's
have a liaison to the local housing partnership. And we don't hear from him. And I have offered to be that liaison because I attend a lot of their meetings. So I would either like to hear, I mean, I think we should know what's going on there.
You're welcome to have it. You've been chewing at it. I mean, I went to their meetings, the 60 minutes, and you get into the meat of something at 59 and a half minutes. We're all done.
I like it. I like.
They meet by the clock.
Oh,
I'd be more than happy to step down if that'll make you excited.
I prefer not to have you step down, but quite frankly.
Well, I think that there's a disconnect, Jerry, in the meetings from what it's been a while, I'll be honest with you. When is the next meeting?
I don't know.
I would have thought you would have known that. Don't take that the wrong way. but We're that
No,
interested.
it's Thursday.
I'll tell you what, let's liaison report, let's leave it at that. You let us know at the next meeting what you want to do.
All right.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports? Okay,
Are there other liaisons?
not that I know of.
Okay, so there are no other reports.
Discussion of town meeting warrant articles. I've got all the information. I will present the hearing information, the dates, the times, the votes.
We've got this memo from Jan.
Got that
Morris.
memo from Jan
Yep.
on the affordable stuff. It came in. I put it in there. It was unexpected and the town meeting is Saturday. Therefore, I felt I can discuss it as it came up. Jan, as an ex-member of the planning board who wrote a lot of our zoning bylaws, who dotted every I and crossed every T before it even went to town council and then after it came to council. She's thorough.
Yeah.
So she sees some problems in there. Quite frankly, I've been confused with it. I don't know why they didn't do something separate. Council seemed to tell us that, oh, no real major changes were made, but you now have a board, and she's not speaking for the Board of Appeals. She was very clear in that letter that you saw that she's speaking as an individual, but I take credence in what she says. So I don't know if you want to do anything. I'm not sure we can even change the vote that we did at 5, I think, to 1, but you got it there. I wanted to make you all aware of it.
Yeah, I think it's useful, Jerry. It does recall and mirror a little bit some of our conversations and what a tough set of issues it really is. And there's almost no way to find a clear way through it, but we did already vote, like to your point, and that seems like where we are.
Right. And I think she will take an initiative on town meeting floor.
That's the appropriate
And she's
place.
already taken an initiative with the mover. So I think at this point, it's probably better off in that domain.
Yeah.
So I will present, I normally will answer questions. I will, and I want the members to know, in case the members are there, on the third article that we voted 4 and 3 on, for the affordable lots. I will give the vote of 4 to 3. I will date the time we had the hearing. But I also may speak against it. So I want to let any members know that voted in favor of it, because there were 4 of you, that I may do that. I will not speak as a planning board chair. I will speak as an individual member who voted against it. But I wanted to at least prepare you so you all know that.
No, that's helpful. That's good of you, Jerry. I was going to ask you, are there any ways in general we could support you at town meeting or not support you?
I think, yes, I think it doesn't matter whether the vote was 4 and 3 in favor of anything or 6-0.
Right.
You are all members of the planning board. The presentation I make is the date, time, the I's and T's that Danny and I cross. And I try and give an overview. Most of the time it's a positive vote, so I don't have a real problem, or it's a negative vote. But occasionally there is a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
But any of you as individual members certainly have the right to speak at town meeting floor.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed.
I wanted to give you that heads up.
Yeah.
That in fact, I may speak against it despite the fact that the planning board voted in favor of it.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you for doing that, Jerry.
Okay.
I got
Yep.
one. Back to Jan's letter
Mhm.
that I'm not going to discuss.
You can
But-
discuss it.
No, I think that
Okay.
some of the board members who haven't been here as long should take the time to look at this, because this is what we did to get stuff passed, and even for the current, everybody. These are some of the stuff that we had to go through to get something passed on town meeting, so it worked properly. Some of the stuff that's been passed recently doesn't work properly. The ADU bylaw took me over 2 months to get a building permit after it was passed through the Attorney General, because the building inspector wouldn't issue it because he didn't know how to read it. We had departments, we had people discussing things. I mean, it was not written so that the building inspector / zoning officer would even issue a permit on it. So the stuff that Jan has in her letter, if we'd flushed that out on some of the other things, we probably wouldn't have had these conflicts. We're going too fast and we're not flushing things out because the stuff is not going through the planning board.
Well, I was going to say, we're not writing them.
No, but I'm just saying, this is a non-planning board member who has worked on the planning board, understands stuff. And this is what she came up with on her own. If we'd all worked together, there probably would have been more pages. And when we finished it, we would have, I'm just saying that it's, somehow we have to get that
Across.
powers to be.
Can I say something?
Of course you can.
Jerry?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Ryan Curley did come here twice with the drafts. And I think at that point, to avoid the situation that that Alfred has just described, the planning board should designate 1 or 2 members. If the select board really wants a certain bylaw to be drafted, then the planning board should get involved in the drafting and not just send him back with comments. I think he came twice before us. And I mean, I think that my feeling was that that several people on the board were just against the idea, no matter how it was drafted, but maybe I may be mistaken. So I think, I think I just want to make that as a kind of rule for future, because I don't want us to be in the situation of saying, well, the planning board, this is what happens when the planning board's not involved with the bylaw, but then we've got to volunteer to help out, if that's the way we feel.
I don't disagree with you, but there's also a timeline. And when the timeline is pushed too quickly, we can't do our job properly.
Yeah, but he came, didn't he come? He came before us quite early, is my memory.
2 meetings, maybe. Maybe if you did 3 meetings, I'd be excited. Sometimes, let's see, course of a year, how many is that? 24 meetings we might have. Sometimes it takes 2 years to get a bylaw. That'd be like 36 meetings on 1 bylaw. He came 3 times and he expects it to be passed? No, he's got his head up his ass. I'm sorry.
No, but wait, no, come
He
on,
doesn't,
come on, Dave.
Bonnie, it's.
Wait a minute. Can I just say something? Because I mean, I think it's much more efficient if the planning board designates 2 members to work with somebody, because you can't wordsmith. I mean, Dave Rowell's absolutely right. It takes a really long time if you're trying to, write these things in committee.
Yeah, but when, Bonnie, he wasn't, and it's not on the agenda, but when he came here, one of those times for the 10,000 square foot lots, it was a totally different situation than what he was talking about. He was talking about 10,000 square foot lots. And he admitted on this floor at the public hearing, oh, probably there's not going to be a single 10,000 square foot lot, because he finally had to say, unless we go to town sewage, because you can't get a septic system in a well on a 10,000 square foot lot. So it didn't really, to me, matter, because it didn't work. He was addressing one thing, 10,000 square foot lots. With Cottage Colony, we had already had a discussion and the board turned it down with someone, the exact same people that had talked to one of the other selectmen, Kathy Bacon. So they chose to go their route. They chose to go their route with 2 years ago with the ADU. It was flawed from the beginning. So they think at this point that they are better and have more attuned to the planning board than the planning board does. And they don't see, as Alfred said, in my mind, they don't see the picture. They don't see the Board of Appeals. They don't see planning. They don't see what goes through. They don't have an idea of that. It's not simple stuff.
Jerry, you just made a great point about why it might be good to have a liaison from the select board.
But we, in essence, we're paying a liaison and we're paying one who is hired as an assistant TA.
No, I understand, and I support the motion and all that. I'm just saying that for the select board, I know she goes to the meetings, but she is not on the select board. Maybe some of their misunderstandings would be easier to clear up if we had a regular select board member coming to every meeting. I'm not trying to bring up the issue again. We've resolved it through our motion, but I just thought of it because of what you just said.
Well, I would think, because I don't know who we would get as a liaison, because I still think there might be a problem with Barbara, but I haven't talked to her, and it wasn't my place to talk to her because I don't know who was going to do it. But certainly the individual in my mind qualified, more qualified than any of the selectmen except for Barbara, is our assistant TA.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying she's not on the select board, but I agree with you.
Yes, but
She'd be writing the policies for both of us.
she's almost, I mean, she's assistant TA.
No, I'm with you completely. I'm with you.
Anyway.
We don't have to go over it again.
All right. Correspondence, anything? Okay. Seeing none, the next meeting is, today's the 7th, 21st?
Don't we have minutes?
Yeah, we got minutes, July 20th and August 17th. Any amendments or changes?
I do for August 17th.
You're all set on July?
I'm
20th?
set on July.
I was. Anybody got a question on July? I'm gonna move July so we can get done with one of them at least.
Okay.
I moved Wednesday, July 20th minutes as presented, printed.
Second.
Second,
Discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Okay. August 17th?
On August, may I?
Yep.
Under recodification, I would just like in the last line of the description, that zoning board of appeals be in quotes, will be used consistently. Maybe a comma after spelling. Or spelling corrections, I guess is what I was going to add. Spelling corrections and zoning board of appeals will be used consistently. Because that was, it was appeals board, this, that, and I had asked that we use that consistently. So I just thought I would clarify it. That's all I want to change.
Okay. Any motion? As amended?
I'll make a motion as amended.
Second,
That was for August 17th.
Yes.
Correct.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Good.
aye.
All right.
So next meeting, Jerry.
Next meeting is the 21st.
Okay.
I'll see what comes up. Obviously, discussion at town meeting, warrant articles will be on that agenda and whatever else. I'm going to try and get a handle on what we're going to do this winter. If codification passes, then I'm going to have to find out what they're gonna want from us and what the board is gonna want to start to do and request from the codification company. So I think that'll be the next task. Other than that, meeting adjourned.
I move we adjourn.
Done.
Good.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right, take
Bye.
care.
Wires and everything.
Yeah, but she didn't have to set it up this time. I know.